Well, as we've been reporting, the Prime Minister has been berated for his use of language in the Commons last night, and after he said the best way to honour the memory of the murdered MP Jo Cox would be to get Brexit done. Joining me now from Gomersall in West Yorkshire is Jo Cox's sister, Kim Leadbeater. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. What do you think of that statement from the Prime Minister that the best way to honour your sister's memory is to get Brexit done?
I watched Parliament TV for 4 hours last night and was mesmerised and dumbstruck by the scenes that I saw before me. And I think the Prime Minister needs to think very carefully about the language he uses. I think everybody has to think really carefully about the language they use. And for me, this is not a party political matter. This is across the political spectrum. It's across the issue of Brexit. And I've been saying this for 2 years now. Unfortunately, I'm not sure people are listening. I think things did reach a bit of a head last night, and I'm hoping from some of the conversations that are taking place this morning that things will be slightly calmer going forward in the coming days and the coming weeks. But I'm very clear that, you know, we all have a responsibility to think about the language we use, the way we treat each other and the way we speak to each other on a human level. But what I'm also very clear about is the last thing I want, the last thing Jo would want, is for her name to be used in a way that silences debate. The robust discussions that are taking place are vitally important, and we live in a democracy. We're very lucky that we live in a democracy where we can have these debates and discussions. But I think there is a tipping point where the level of civility and the level of respect, becomes unacceptable. And I think, unfortunately, we witnessed that in the chamber last night.
I understand that, but just on that specific statement from the Prime Minister about being the best way to honour your sister's memory being to honour effectively what the 17.4 million voted for 3.5 years ago. I mean, that of itself is not incendiary. He wasn't the one who introduced your sister into the debate. What do you think of that specific claim? Because after all, we know that Jo was an alliance builder who wanted to work with other parties, and getting out of the European Union, wouldn't that be an alliance, a compromise?
Well, I think the point he was trying to make, if I'm being fair, is that the best way to bring people together is to find some sort of solution to the problem that we face. I think and I hope that's what he meant. It's very difficult for me to be objective about it when Jo's name is used. I think he probably got it wrong. I think the humbug comment was wrong, and I think to use Jo's name in that way was wrong. And what I hope is he has some time to reflect on that and think about it. But I think the point he was making, and again, I always try and be objective, I always try and be fair about these things, is that people want an end to this chaos, and I agree with him in that respect. It's very difficult. It was a very heated debate in Parliament last night. You could feel the tension, you could feel the passion that was there. And under those circumstances, people do make mistakes. I hope he has some time to reflect on what he said and realise that possibly it wasn't the best thing to say under those circumstances.
The organisations you set up in memory of Jo are about conciliation. What's your thought on what we do about Brexit, with quite clearly the country's still divided down the middle on this question?
Goodness me, I wish I had the answer to that. I wouldn't be sat here, would I? I'd be sat somewhere far more important than Gomersall. But I think we have to find a way forward, and ultimately that is going to come down to compromise. And I think back to our childhood and how Jo and I were brought up, and compromise is a big part of that. It's about listening to each other, it's about understanding different perspectives, not becoming entrenched in our own positions. I think that's the only way we're going to find a way forward. And as we do that, we have to do that with respect for people who disagree with us. And that's what we do through the work of the Jo Cox Foundation. It's about understanding difference, it's about appreciating difference and embracing it, but doing so in a respectful manner, and ultimately coming down to the fact that we do still have things in common, as Jo said in her now famous speech. It's very easy to forget that, and I think the humanity of being in public life is what's lost at the moment, and we need to pull that back. you know, it's a very difficult job. I sympathise with MPs. They've got a really, really difficult job to do. But I think also what we have to do is they have to take responsibility for their own actions as well. And some of the behaviour we've seen across the political debate, I'm not a member of a political party, I don't have a political allegiance. I think, you know, everybody, whatever your colours are, wherever you are on Brexit, you have to think about how you move forward from this and listen to each other. You know, and I've seen people, you know, calling other people out who've behaved as badly themselves. You know, so I think that's my main point. If I had the answer to Brexit, I'd be a very rich woman, wouldn't I?
Kim Levinson, thank you very much indeed.